on evaluating student academic performance, SB 1566, House Bill 3, training. It is called to order at 7:07. Today is Thursday, February the 25th, 2021. I'm now doing roll call. Jerry Zamora?
Here.
Veronica Mendoza? Here. Petra Ramirez?
Here.
Aris Iglesias?
Here.
Juan Gonzalez?
Here.
Roy Vela?
Here.
Annie Rogers here. We have a quorum of 7. In accordance with Governor Abbott's declaration of the COVID-19 public health threat and action to temporarily suspend certain provisions of the Texas Open Meeting Act, a quorum of the District Board of Trustees will hold its regular meeting by video conference or teleconference. The public will have the option to attend and participate in the meeting remotely by video conference or by teleconference. Members of the public may access this meeting by looking it up on the website. We are now ready to start.
Thank you, President
Mr.
Rogers.
McShank?
And Board, thank you very much. Dr. Pettis, we are tonight will conduct the Senate Bill 1566 training, which deals with evaluation and improving student outcomes. This, during the 86th legislative session, the legislature mandated that board members receive the Senate Bill 1566 training, and it's done, required every 2 years. And so tonight, we're going to focus on the board's not only understanding, but being able to oversee the district with student outcomes as the focus and not other outcomes. Our accountability system, the A through F system, is tied through student outcomes. And that is our student performance and the STAR test, grades 3 through 8, and then secondary 9 through 12 with the end of course testing, as well as the 3 domains, which is domain 1 is student achievement, domain 2 is student progress, and domain 3 is closing the gaps. So we're going to review that. There have been some changes with the accountability system, and one in particular is that the military portion of the readiness for college and career readiness is now college career readiness, not military readiness, so it's been suspended. The district will continue its ROTC training as usual, but we will not count for the accountability system. But it will not de-emphasize our involvement in training our students for the military in the various programs we have, okay? So let's begin. Student outcomes don't change until adult behaviors change. What does that really mean? That means that we have to make sure that we refocus, repurpose ourselves as a governing board to make sure that our students are college career ready, okay? And it's going to be measured in terms of how well you're doing in terms of outcomes, okay? See, okay? School boards matter. We've spoken about it. Do school boards matter? Absolutely they matter. Why do they matter? It's the elected body, elected by the public, that oversees the management school district. And the school board hires one person, that is the superintendent of schools. Superintendent is the only employee that the school board has, okay? Understanding that other staff employees think that you hire them. No, you really don't hire them. You approve hiring professional people in Chapter 21's recommendation of the superintendent. Just to know that people see you as though you hired me. No, I did not. Dr. Pettis really recommended you be hired. Okay, just make that very clear. We have one employee, right? Progress monitoring matters. inspect what you expect, okay? If you expect something, you have to inspect it along the way. So what this really means is that we need to monitor what we do in terms of how our students are doing. And it's based on really three things. The text, okay? If some of you are retired teachers, you know what that means in terms of preparing students for, if you would say, preparing the school lesson, if you will, what you're going to teach, right? And it's tied to the STAR, which is an outcome, but the midpoint of the benchmarks that students take along the way is to determine how well they're progressing toward meeting the goal, right? So that's the progress monitoring that's important. Accountability is going to matter. And since we're talking about accountability, we know that the accountability system will be in place with school year 2021, but we will not have the rating of A through F. We will not be rated officially to A through F, but you will continue to, students will take the STAR test. There's more flexibility in that we'll have more time to do it. Because of COVID, we have to have our spacing, making sure that we're safe. So instead of, in the past, you would have a certain time, you're going to do this, these days, this date. But now, as I understand, Dr. Pettis, you'll have more flexibility as to the amount of days that you use to get students tested, right? So accountability does matter. And while we're talking about the accountability system, there will be no suspension of the test. One big challenge we have is that the Texas Education Commissioner said that you need to come face to face, particularly with secondary students for the end of course tests. And it needs to be in a school facility, or it could be in another facility if it meets all the criteria for safety and monitoring, right? So, and Dr. Pettis knows that's a big hurdle because we're challenged with that because most of our students right now are remote. And some families don't want to bring them in. But one thing to note is this. If you're secondary and you are a senior expecting to graduate, if you have not taken the EOC test, if you don't take it face to face, then you won't be able to graduate. You need to understand that. It's going to be punitive.
Oh.
I know that it's going to be difficult, but you need to take the test, at least take the test. Now, whether you pass the test, if you don't pass the test, then we go back and look at your class, your teachers, your classes you've taken. If you're passing those satisfactorily, then you can graduate from high school. But the first prerequisite is you must take that test face to face. So,
As a matter of fact, the commissioner was supposed to give us a letter to send out to parents. And he canceled the meeting the last couple of weeks. We had a meeting today and all he dealt with was the weather situation. He has not sent the letter to us. However, because we're part of the Lead Forward organization,
yes.
of the, they train us on accountability and so forth. They wrote a letter for superintendents for us to utilize, okay? So we are going to be getting ready to send the letter, letting parents know that for the lower grades, especially, 5th, 8th, they're not gonna be penalized, which we've already told parents, but to repeat that, but that for end of course, right now they're telling us the kids must take it. So we are going to be sending that letter probably tomorrow. And, I usually send it to you, before it goes out because you're gonna get questions. But I wanted to let you all know that we must let our families know. Now, we're just telling them that. Whether they send them or not, that's up to them. However, our counselors, our high school staff has done a lot of calls in calling the seniors and any other students that have failed some of the tests and so forth. So the campuses have reached out to them and it's the parent's choice at the end of the day or the child.
Right. And that's clear. We're all on the same page. You'll be getting calls, I'm sure, that, well, this won't happen. We know that for end of course test, it's face to face, and we have to have in place. I guess if you're taking it remotely, who's taking your test? We don't know. You know, it's a lot of things you can't control, but it's a controlled environment, right? So that's what we want to talk about on the accountability piece. And then we go from there. That's all we can say. We can't project what the future is going to hold, but we will predict the 21-22 school year. The accountability system will be back in full force through that. It's going to be a huge challenge for us, but that's what we think is going to happen. Legislature's in session now, so they might have probably a legislative mandate saying that that's going to happen. That's what we predict. Okay. Implementation matters, and of course, this is Texas Constitution, which was created really in 1876, in which it states that it's essential for the preservation of liberties and rights of people. The legislature should make sure that there's a suitable provision to support and maintain a system of public free schools. And that's why we have this here, right? And so it goes back from the beginning. Again, we're reminded this. Obviously, the board of division values community, school board behavior impact student outcomes. Obviously, I think we asked you this last time in 10 words or less. How do you, what do you want your legacy to be, you know, as a board member? And we have some really, I think, a couple of, two new board members, brand new. I think you may have, when we did a team building training earlier, we may have asked you this question. But what would you be most proud of having made during your time on the board? Mr. Gonzalez, I think you may have reflected on this before, I may have asked you. But you might just share that with us again as you board member.
Just try to, like we said from the beginning, on the first statement there, it's until the adult behavior changes that the students will change. So my behavior, through my behavior, I'm going to impact the students, staff, everyone for the positive, and try to make a difference in not only on their school life, but they're in their lives too.
Absolutely. Making sure they have success, you know, to succeed in life.
Exactly. I know we always use it as cliche, and I mentioned that before. Education is the key to success, but in my case, it has been. And I think education, that's the reason I'm doing this, is because it is very important, especially for our community. You know, low socioeconomics and education can make a difference and break the cycle.
If you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And we know that the basic need is that of food and shelter.
Correct.
We all got a taste of that with the freeze hit. So all these folks that had all these resources, they became low socioeconomic for a week. For 1 week, right? Yep. Just think though, many of our students, that's kind of survival mode for them in a way. You follow me? They don't have those resources. You know, the next level of psychological is belonging and loving and what have you. That's the next level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And then the last one is self-fulfillment. That's when we go take the vacation to Cancun, you know, or something like that.
A cruise. Let's not go there.
Okay. Didn't say anything. That's a vacation. You go to the Caribbean, right?
They've been reading.
Okay. But when we think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, honestly, it's a talking point when you think about it. We've been also accustomed to those things that you enjoy in life, but our students, the majority of our students, come from very humble economic beginnings. They struggle. And that's something I'm sure that, you know, kind of that's a talking point. I was thinking about that. Now we don't have electricity, we don't have water. What are we going to do? And, right?
And for me, that was a big concern when we closed the schools and so forth, because many kids, their meals were they were receiving probably the only good meal it was at school. So that was a big concern, but I know that we worked towards getting meals. Exactly. So, and that was right away. So that was.
Yes, that was wonderful.
Our children get the 7 meals,
Mhm.
have breakfast and lunch
Yes,
on Saturdays.
yes.
And then the children that are coming in person, they get them on Friday for the weekend.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's true, what you said, Mr. McShannon. I think it hit everybody because I've never had to ask for milk. I mean, it's just something that we have at home all the time. I went and got in line
Mhm.
where they get the food to see if I could get milk because there was no milk.
The sports, we're out of milk and eggs.
Had money, but you can't buy it.
Yeah, exactly.
What, yeah, you are,
Oh.
right? How much would it cost,
Mhm.
right? Gas, you know, the line is,
Mhm.
Yes.
you know, quarter of a mile, half mile long, right? It was, got it.
It's the new ones because we, the old ones,
Yeah.
we adjusted because we went when we were young, so it was okay.
That's true. My brother moved back
Look
to
what they have.
California, retired to the farm where we grew up in the old house, right? You know, he's a, I guess you might say, one of those, right? So I called him and said, how's it going down there? Well, okay, we're doing okay. You remember that survival mode we did when we were kids? You know? We got cold, you know what my parents had the heat. I mean, we were kids, you know, but it was sort of funny. You're right about that.
Mhm.
It's never been introduced to that.
Tear it up.
Oh, that
My
is-
camping skills came out to light this past week. I had a camping stove and
You had to put the camera still out, okay.
we made it happen. We made it happen. So I think we ate more.
Well, you know, you take the fireplace, right?
Uh-huh.
You could use a fireplace.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Yes.
Did you bring it indoors or did you?
I did it both. The first time I did it outdoors, I'm like, it's too cold. Why not bring it inside? Took it inside.
Yeah, camping.
You can take the fireplace, get those coals,
Uh-huh.
get your iron skillet.
Oh, yeah.
You can make breakfast where you
Mhm.
like, okay.
On
How we gonna
campo.
Your chicken and put in there, you know,
And the car's outside, ready, selling. For selling.
I told my husband for next time, we're going to buy a butane heater also. Not only an outside stove, but a butane.
Make sure you stay warm.
a lot of people are saying that,
Yep.
Dr. Spence, you're right. I know people, well, this is not gonna happen again, so I'm gonna buy a butane heater, a stove and all that.
And then we'll
I
forget.
have a gas heater.
They made their list after.
When I moved there, it was a gas heater. That stayed on for
Yes, Dr. Bless Coach Bless.
No, I just said after what we went through and the survival skills, everyone made their list, okay.
Yeah,
And
this is what we need.
this is gonna happen again, whether it be cold or even hurricane wise, it's gonna happen.
Yep.
So we're gonna need to be, a little bit more prepared.
Yes.
You're absolutely,
We're gonna have something between now and the end of the year.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of,
that's really something.
We were going to replace our water heater. And because it's gas, and I had stated like 3 months ago that I wanted an electric one. Well, guess what? Now I changed my mind.
Yeah, don't.
You're right, you're
I'm gonna keep the gas.
right. Keep the gas.
I didn't know I had a gas heater.
And they're more efficient too. And get your dryer too. Gas dryer.
That's true, right?
And then you get money, you get rebate money from the gas company.
Very well.
Acuérdate,
Um,
solar.
I think we've, as far as what you're most proud of doing the board and Dr. Coach Iglesias, what is your vision in terms of, being on the board?
Oh, just a time that can be known that, that the time period that, maybe that we were all in here together, that we were fair with everyone and everything, everybody was treated, made sure that our kids from our community were number one, decisions made in their best interest. And, even though some may not like it, but we're doing it all for our kids.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
And one thing that, Coach Iglesias, you touched on, you talked about equity. There are two different, equity and quality, okay? This freeze of what we had allowed us to deal with equity.
Mhm.
But equity is defined in terms of having the opportunity to have access to whatever you want, let's say access.
Meeting the
Access.
needs, meeting the needs.
Right? Okay. So equality means that it's measured, everything's the same. We're equal, like 2 + 2 is 4. We're all equal, that's fine. But equity is different. What can you meet your needs, right? So this dealt with the equity issue came into play here, right? Because you have to make some adjustments. You talk about students with special needs, English language learners.
Mhm.
That's equity, folks. Low economic kids. That's equity. So we have to make what? Accommodations for those students in order for them to be able to perform at a level to meet the standard of the accountability system, right? So this is really an opportunity to remind, sure you will, Dr. Pettis, you remind people that, what happened to us, this happens to families every day to some degree. Okay, to some degree it does. And hopefully people understand their why, right? Our why we do things we do. Have an appreciation for that. Very well. Anybody else have any other observations? I think I know kind of where you are. Anything? Still, I think veterans here, right? Okay. Inputs, outputs, and outcomes. And we talked about this earlier. An input is like to teach. Input is preparation, okay? Beginning of a cycle. Like to teach, that's the beginning of a cycle. For athletic teams, you do what? You prepare them, they get into training early. They don't start out playing games the first day. But then we have to do what? Measure the output to tell us where are we at the midpoint, mid-cycle, how much progress are we making? Those are benchmarks. Who has responsibility for inputs? Superintendent. Who has responsibility for outputs? The superintendent. Now, outcomes. That is end of the cycle. What are results? That's responsibility of the board. You're responsible for the outcomes. So board members, we have to remember this. Our role is to deal with what? Outcomes, and not to deal with what? The inputs and outputs, right? So what's going on in the classroom, nice to know, but you don't get involved in how it's done. You ask the superintendent, what are we doing? The superintendent will tell you the how and all the requirements that are required in terms of what's needed to prepare that student, okay? So if we get over into the inputs and outputs, we're doing what? Micromanaging. That's on student outcomes. That's also with other outcomes. I think of construction, I think of district operations, I think of all that kind of stuff, right? Whose responsibility is that? The superintendent's, right? Because we're a community that we know everybody, you'll know each other, grew up together. I just call Mr. So-and-so, Miss So-and-so, okay? Should we be doing that? Should we be doing that as a board? No. Do we do it? Yes. Why? Well, you don't know the person. But when we do that kind of thing, it becomes what? Disruptive. Disruptive in terms of what we're trying to do, because inputs, outputs are clear, that is the role of the superintendent. The outcome is that of the board. You asked a question about on the outcomes. We talked about, remember some time ago I gave you a chart on change. You want to get change? There's 6 things that have to happen. One of those things are resources. You ask the superintendent, what resources do we need to get this done? We need to increase resources, funding maybe, right? We need to make sure that they have the skills they need in staff development. We have to invest in our staff to make sure that they are what? Able to when you have all this technology, I'm sure you were very challenged with remote learning because teachers not knowing and students not knowing how to use it. So you need to have what? Teachers to get assistants to know how to operate the software. I mean, to generate it, right? So that's where the board comes in and say, what do we need to get this done? Right? Superintendent will say, we need this. So you're going to provide resources. You're going to provide the skills, make sure that people have the training. You're going to make sure that they have the incentives. You're going to make sure our vision is clear, our mission is clear, and our belief is unified. You do that, you get change. And that is the responsibility of the superintendent to make sure that that's how that works. Why do I repeat that? Well, we're creatures of habit, right? That's why we have this training every 2 years. We have to remember. And this is a great board. You were HEB Board of the Year, the top board in the state of Texas. It tells you something, right? But on the other hand, you know, it's like the Super Bowl. You know, everybody thought Kansas City was going to win back to back. I did. Well, it didn't turn out that way, right?
My grandson knew.
Follow me? So, same with school boards. We're a great school board, but we have to do what? Reinvent and redo things differently. Right? Complacency cannot set in, right? It can happen. Very good, excellent. I just want to share with you, while I was running a little bit late, Dr. Pettis got a call from someone who we know very well, who asked her, would she consider an appointment on a national board for the whole country that includes maybe 5 to 6 superintendents as a think tank as to what's going to happen in public education that they see now and what's happening in the future. Now, they had a lot of superintendents to choose from Region 1. But she was the one that was called and selected.
As a matter of fact, he was walking in a while ago when I was looking at my messages, and there was that message, and the last name was misspelled. The only person I know, you know, doesn't have that last name, and I feel like, you know, this particular gentleman used to work for TA
Yes.
for many years.
Right, for many years.
And he was in charge of the curriculum and the assessment and so forth. He is now part of our foundation, Raise Your Hand Texas.
Raise Your Hand Texas. Right.
Sponsored by HEB. Okay? So he was one of the gentlemen that came and visited our district last year.
Right.
And we kept in contact, you know, Mr. McShann knows him very well too. So Raise Your Hand Texas has invited me to be a panelist in twice. And he's always been very, very supportive of what we're doing here in the district. And, but we go way back with all the adoptions and everything when I used to be curriculum director and with school improvement, all of that. But anyways, he says, you know, I tell everybody, and I got the call, and he says, right now they're looking at various school districts, and because they serve a period of 5 years
Yes.
in the panel advisory. And he said, so I talked to them about you, you know, because we haven't had representation in South Texas.
Wow.
And so he knows that years back when we had the Reading First grants, remember? I was selected by TEA to go to the Department of Education and represent the state in the impact study. So he was one of those that nominated me at those times years back. And even, you know, and he continued with TA moving up and so forth. And for some reason, you know, every so often I get to see him at a conference or whatever. And, you know, I see him as a mentor too, because I learned a lot from him when he was DA. You know, I could pick up the phone and call and ask, you know, any of his staff members. So, but I hadn't seen him in a very long time. And then when he came with Raise Your Hand Texas, I was surprised. I mean, not with the HEB committee, I was surprised seeing him there. And so I just told him that, you know, I was very humble to get that from him. And so he wanted to ask me, and he says that they would cover all the expenses. There's no honorarium, which I don't expect, but just the fact that to network with top-notch superintendents in the country, because it's like a think tank.
Exactly.
Okay. And, you know, it's huge school districts that are going to be, you know, nationally. And they come together, what, maybe twice a year or
Twice a
something like
year.
that?
They're doing it
And
virtual.
right now, they're doing
They'll
virtual.
be going face to face.
In the past, they've done it face to
Yeah,
face.
that's like LA Unified.
So, and I said, and I told him, I said, I gotta talk to the board, you know? I said, but for now, save the place. I said, the board is very supportive. I said, and just the fact that, because he believes that, you know, our district is innovative, always thinking of how can we continue to transform ourselves and continue to grow, continuous improvement and so forth. So that's why. So, I mean, so I've got to thank all of you, you know, for making sure that we continue in that path and that our district is being recognized, because, you know, I don't see it as a feather on my hat. I see it as a feather on our district, and you all are that backbone. So.
Congratulations.
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 Just so happened, I
Well,
walked in and that happened.
it's an honor for all of
It
us.
certainly is. And I've known this gentleman for many years. I've worked, you know, in Austin and what have you. And so I happened to be there, and he said, hello. So we spoke a little bit. It's quite an honor. Really.
Because, yeah, with the new phones, you know, I'm trying to learn how to use it. And I had on my phone trying to dial out and so forth. He was walking me through, so I had him on speaker. And I said, as a matter of fact, I just want you to know, Mr. McFadden just walked in. And, yes.
Yeah, it was very good. So that was totally unexpected, obviously.
It really was. It was like out of the blues. I'm like, he still remembers us, you know?
It's wonderful.
It really is.
And trust is so important, you know, that the external agency like Raise Your Hand Texas, that they trust what we're doing. You know, and they would not have someone representing public education nationally if you weren't an exemplary school district and board.
And he said that he told the CEO, you know, Dr. Perez has worked in the Valley, you know, and mentioned the school district that I worked for 24 years. I've known her since then. She worked at Kingsville, and now she's been with Mission CISD going on 3 years. And
So it's quite a tribute to the board, and as Dr. Pettis said, she simply represent you as a strong.
to our community at large.
And back to what we're talking about is the inputs, outputs, and outcomes. And I said we have to trust, right? Make sure we trust. And I understand it's hard sometimes. But I want to know the details of this. Okay, well, ask that question. What are we doing? Superintendent will give you feedback. And if you want to have more information, just sometimes do a one-on-one superintendent, and we can talk about some of these things so you even have a better understanding. That's the way excellent boards work together, a team of 8. That's what you do. If you want more clarity, sometimes say, okay, let's take a have coffee, have break, come in, let me be clear to understand this, right? And so very well. So, you know, the input, they would say, is this. The output is this. That's halftime. We know how we're doing. College and Cardinal girls are playing tonight basketball, and I think that Edinburgh team is going to be a good game on the win. And this is the outcome. So very well. this right here is here on other outcomes. Have to deal with the financial piece as another outcome. We have the first integrity financial rating in Texas, and we're always get the top rating by finance. Parent engagement, staff retention, those things are important, but they're not part of the accountability system. You follow me? Student outcomes drive the accountability system. They're important, and our focus is on student outcomes, because it'll measure what? The results of students rather than adults. Okay? The T-test and all those other things, we evaluate teachers and all those things, but that's not the outcome that we're looking for. It's how well are our students doing. One thing that we always struggle with is when you look at the amount of time we spend on our board agenda on student outcomes and other outcomes. We've gotten better at that, I would say. We're spending more time dealing with what student outcomes than we used to, whereas it used to be skewed heavily on other outcomes, dealing only with, the bids and the contracts and all those other things. So we want to try to get at least half of our agenda dealing with what? Student outcomes. That's something we want to be very mindful of. That's where our focus ought to be. All right. Any questions about that? Okay. SMART goals. We're going to talk about a SMART goal. A SMART goal is the S is specific, right? The M is measurement. The A is it attainable. R is it results. And the T, very critical, is there a timeline? We say, well, how are you doing? Oh, we did very good. We're going to improve academically. Is that a SMART goal? No. Tell me anything. Yeah, we did good. Okay, what is good? Well, we did fine. Now, we need to be specific in terms of, was our population specific? What are we measuring? It's elementary students in third grade. Okay, what are they going to do? They're going to increase from 30% to 50% in their achievement, and they're going to do it by May of 2021, right?
And that's what we've been focusing on the last 3 years with the district improvement plan, the campus improvement plans that are presented to you. Remember?
Yes.
SMART goals.
SMART goals. Remember, we got to be able to measure what we're doing. We used to not do that, right? Years back, we just sort of just said, yeah.
I was gonna say that many times, we want to achieve this, but we don't have a step or goals how to get there. And then you have to inspect what you expect, and that wasn't happening.
That was not happening. And it was hit and miss, and we just average everything. And when you average things, there's so many kids that's falling through the cracks.
Yeah.
Right, we know that.
And that's what the research shows, even in our personal lives. That every single day, we have to wake up and say, today, these are the things I'm going to accomplish.
Absolutely.
These are my goals. And that gratitude, I'm thankful for these things. And then these are the things I need to accomplish today to be able to get to where we need to be.
And you said, student outcomes don't change or adult behavior change. You take it even personal. Things not going to change until your behavior changes.
Correct.
And it's hard. It's not easy. If I know that I have to do something in the morning, I'm one of those first. I do my workouts and I walk my 3 miles. I do my workouts. I have to do that because I want to be energized. I want to come in really like it's game time. I want to be prepared. So that's something I've always done. And this morning I had to go to Brownsville, so I get up at early, 5:30. I do my exercise and stuff. At least I feel like I'm ready. May not be, but you think about that.
Drink your zeal.
Yeah, drink my zeal.
Yeah.
I drink my zeal. My son has me on this. I tell you, it really works. And so that's the thing that's important. It works. If you're gonna model of behavior you want others to follow, we gotta work on ourselves. Let me tell you. And when you get to be a senior like me, you know, some of us, you gotta kind of work at it a little bit, right?
Every
You
day
don't
is.
want to, but, we gotta work at it a little bit, right?
But at all times, even young, you have to plan it. If not, it's not gonna
It's
happen.
not gonna happen.
It's not gonna happen.
Smart goals. We need to think about that in our my own personal life. We have to do it. That's the hope. We expect our students to do this, we do it to ourselves as well, right? It's so true. I was going to say something about, I thought of something about the weather. What was it? In terms of smart goal, I escaped it. It was sort of comical, but in terms of the smart goal, can't remember. It was,
Can I make a comment on the SMART goals? You know, you always, I mean, regardless of what you're doing, you always have to have the goals, you know, something of your, but this is also tied very closely in with the accountability, because when you hold somebody accountable, you can, when there's a result, you know, on the accountability, you can see, okay, they did have their goals set. This is the process that they did in order to achieve, you know, at the end, what they wanted to, but accountability ties in with that.
accountability ties in, and this is the hard part. Okay, this is the hard part. People you know, you do you measure their performance. If they're not really performing at the level
Mhm.
that's suitable and adequate, you have to make a tough decision. Okay? You've heard me talk about the 3 C's, you know, the clock, the chair, and the check. Okay? What does that mean? The clock, sit in the chair, I collect my check. If you're a teacher, you cannot do that, right? You have to do what? Move around, right? I would think. Would that be correct?
Well, we're working with the fundamental 5. With the fundamental 5.
I don't think they can right now. They're in front of the computer though.
Yeah, well,
Unfortunately, right now they can't.
yes. But
But yes.
That's the piece, folks. I'm saying that when we find people that's doing that, when you don't have a full tank, you've heard me say this before, you know, you have to have a full tank.
Mhm.
If you don't have a full tank, you go to the house, right? You retire.
Mhm.
And the other piece you heard me talk about the road people, right? Road people retired on active duty. Okay? That's gonna be the tough part, and the person who shocks the system really is the superintendent. Is gonna say, you know, this is not really working, we gotta make the change. That's hard. You know what?
Remote instruction is leaving a lot of kids behind.
A lot of kids behind.
A lot of
Yes.
kids.
We see it at
Yes.
home.
Now,
Okay.
Especially the little ones,
this is the next,
Tired already.
yes.
this is the next step the superintendent, I'm sure, will be taking, coming soon. Rolling out
Mhm.
the plan to bring people back into the school.
We are,
Especially the children that are falling behind.
Okay.
And it has to be a phase-in,
exactly.
you know, it has to be very
Phase-in.
cautious. But
Teachers gonna be coming back, staff is coming back. Because we know that we've lost.
think about our seniors that need to take end of course,
Yes.
Mhm.
especially those that are falling behind,
Yes.
okay? They need tutorials, they need accelerated instruction. Another thing, you know, think about those transition grades. 5th graders going into junior high.
Yeah.
And they haven't had almost a year and a half.
Yep.
Of face-to-face instruction.
Mhm.
8th graders going into 9th grade,
It's gonna be huge. So there,
summer school. You know, we must have something to start closing the gap.
Mhm.
and this is something board and superintendent will be faced with. System's gonna be shocked. I say shock the system. That is, a directive gonna be given. Sometimes I'm gonna just pat you for a little bit, but now I'm gonna say, do this, right? Is that right? Sometimes you have to tell them to do it, right?
But we'll be very cautious,
But
you know, very,
Very cautious. Ridiculous.
about following CDC guidelines
Absolutely.
and doing a phasing approach.
But that system's gonna be shot.
Yeah.
And board, they're gonna come to you crying, oh, I have a pre-existing condition and I got all those things,
Yeah, you had it for a year and a half,
okay?
it's time.
I think
Come to you. Yes, sir.
with us, because there's like 5,420 or 430 working with us, at Driscoll's. And the biggest issue with us, it was not the going back to work, it's the availability of the vaccines.
Yes.
And so with us, everybody either is going to take it or everybody has to sign a waiver and everybody has to return to work.
Right.
And so we were supposed to go back January, or where are we at? We were supposed to go January. They moved it to now because we're supposed to be out in the field, right? So now they moved it back to April 10th, April 15th.
Okay.
In order for everyone to have access. But now Driscoll made a major purchase of vaccines. They did a survey and they said now there's no choice. You sign a waiver now or get the vaccine X date. So every 2 weeks or 3 weeks, everybody's getting vaccinated. And we're talking about the Children's Hospital, the health plan, all the specialty clinics from Houston, Victoria, San Antonio, Laredo, Mission, McAllen,
Yes.
Rio Grande City. So, and that's the one thing that I was asking, it was suggested to Dr. Pettis, because La Jolla, it's my understanding, is they made an offer to most of the employees at La Jolla. Hey, you want the vaccination? Here it is. And that way they could return back to some sort of normalcy soon.
Yes.
And I thought that was the great way of moving forward.
Yeah, that's the way.
And those
So, yeah.
districts that are able to do that is because they've had memorandum of understandings with the county for years and years.
Mhm.
Okay, when we looked into that, we knew we had an MOU,
Yeah.
but it wasn't for vaccines or anything like that.
That's why.
So we, at the beginning of the year, we started working on it and racing, against the clock when all of this started happening. Because, MOUs take a lot of back and forth from the various attorneys
Negotiating,
and negotiating and all of that. So now we have that MOU, but there were so many other districts that already
Well,
had it.
In front, yeah.
And so we didn't know that that was
that's what
an
we,
issue. But now, another thing is that kudos to our staff, to the county, to the city, because what the accolades that our staff is getting is that our system of the inoculation of the vaccine and how smooth it is, and compared to possibly other places.
they wait
So
hours and hours.
because of the fact that we also opened up the gymnasium, we had the elderly come and take it, and we were evaluated on all of that. We have our staff over there assisting, from custodians to clerical to our nurses. So pretty soon, we are going to have a couple of clinics that we'll be able to host. Now, I can't tell you that they're going to give them all to us. We haven't heard any of that. What it is for what we know for now, is that it's going to be a collaboration between the county and us, but open to the community. And the community includes all of our staff. But to say you're going to be allowed to earmark to your staff, we wish we could hear that, but we haven't been told any of that. But that's what we're working on.
Maybe with a Johnson?
But I think it's because it's a county issue. It's a county, and the agreement is the MOU is between county and school,
That's right.
or county and municipalities.
And now we do have that county MOU.
MOU.
Now we do have the
Matter
MOU.
now, getting
Now we're just-
vaccine.
And I think one of the issues is before they used to announce it 2 to 4 days, 2 or 3 days in advance, give the people an opportunity. Now they're advancing on the day of, and by the time people know, the line's a mile long.
I know.
They have long.
Exactly,
I
but
just-
one thing I'm gonna tell you, I don't know if you all remember, it was probably 3 or 4 months ago, that we were all signing up with UTRGV.
Yeah, people signed up.
Well, now we're getting the emails come in
I did.
and some of us are saying,
Oh,
we already took it.
Yeah.
So what does that tell you?
That they're getting more.
They're getting more. So there's gonna be opportunities. And there's a lot of our staff that moved
Yes.
and made phone calls to their contacts,
Mhm.
called pharmacies. And because we were going down the line, I already took it. I already took it. I already took it. So some people moved heaven and earth to take it.
That's wonderful. Well, that is really wonderful. So, yes, the SMART goals, we use that in the district, and it's definitely something that is a best practice. Public education. We know where we are, right? Very well. Okay. These are non-examples, like students will improve academically. These are not SMART goals. Until, in the old days, that's what we used to say, right? Percentage persistent second year post-secondary will grow by 5% each year. What is each year? You know, that's, doesn't tell me specifically, you're not quantifying it here, right?
So it doesn't give you the time.
And it doesn't tell you if proper percent persistent second year post-second, okay. The same for these right here. Now, these right here will probably show you, progress monitoring why. Well, we know what we have to do. We said that what happens in the boardroom will be in the classroom, what gets measured gets done. Progress monitoring, that is something that is done continuously. I know that you have teams that go out and you all do the monitoring. How do you know if you're making progress toward your student outcomes? And this is simply, you can see where we are in the first quarter, second quarter. This measures where you are, right? And we'll have some idea as to whether we need to remediate or tutor or what have you in some areas, or if you're strong in reading or math or writing or social studies or science. You'll know where you are, right? Continue on here. Now, these are SMART goals. Percentage of graduates having completed an associate degree and are between awarding an associate, the certification by graduation will grow from 25 to 50% by 2022. That's a SMART goal.
So it's specific. We're talking about graduates.
Right, that's the population.
It's measurable. We want 50%. It's attainable.
And it's
the
result
time.
focused.
And results focused.
You have a timeline. That's a SMART goal. So that's what your teachers are doing. They come in, we'll know exactly where our kids are going to be, right? So that's accountability, right? And these are some examples here. These are SMART goals. These are SMART goals. EOC, percentage of 7th and 8th graders who have passed the algebra EOC will increase from 0 to 50% by 2021. Okay. Formative, interim, and summative. A formative is to give you a status of where we are. The interim is at midpoint, and summative is at the end. Okay. Monitoring calendar. And that's something that you can have a monitoring report, and that you all have that. They have this in the various departments. What the system is in place to make sure we monitor what we're doing, right?
Yes.
Collaborative setting, identifying non-negotiables. Collaborative set non-negotiable. Notice the non-negotiable, that's what it's going to have to come down to as we move toward this face-to-face and bringing people back. And that's the piece, folks, I'm talking about. When you're going to say this is going to happen, some people are going to come screaming and hollering. Don't want to do it because it's been a year. I kind of like this. In my routine, I can mute I don't know what they do.
Kids.
Probably. I'm in my pajamas. I don't have to get dressed. I don't have to comb my hair. I can just I like this. So the habit is going to have to change.
A lot of our students do want to come back.
Yeah,
The students-
I've heard.
yes.
What about some of our staff doesn't?
Because.
Some of our staff doesn't.
Yes.
Pues ni modo, van a tener que.
Social
I'm
interaction.
sorry. Yeah, it's like
They wanna be.
students need them.
The kids want to come out. It's
Yes.
some of our staff members.
And the students need the staff.
And they don't grow mentally without the friendship of those
And the social, yeah, the
social gatherings.
so important.
Yes,
Critical.
yes.
So important.
No,
They're missing that
and
piece.
our kids that are involved in extracurricular activities, some of their social emotional needs are being met.
Yes.
Or kids that are very involved in church or with,
Right.
Yes.
Boys and Girls Club, different things,
Scouting,
okay?
what have you.
But those that are,
That have nothing, it's,
No, the,
depression is skyrocketed in this past,
where our
Yeah,
LPCs
social-
and our counselors, oh my goodness,
I know.
they have a huge load.
Yes, they do.
the FFA kids, because they have animals and stuff,
Yes.
that gets them out of the house and they're actually,
The FFA.
and that's every day.
You have sports, if you have theater, you have, at least you get to,
Absolutely.
They can do something.
Yep.
The livestock show is gonna go on, you won't have a lot of people there, but the kids will show the animals,
yeah.
they're gonna be there, right?
Mhm.
Will still go on. So, that's so important. The collaborative setting, identifying non-negotiable, non-collaborative, set and non-negotiables. And that equals what? Student outcomes. All right. Again, we are reminded that accountability matters. I think we know why accountability matters. First of all, it's going to be real big, this legislative session. We don't know what's going to happen because we're funded, the foundation school program is based on attendance. That's how we're funded, ADA.
Yeah.
We know that we haven't had an ADA, we know that the attendance is
It's not very good.
not very good.
Not,
So,
it's secondary has been better than elementary. However, the last 4 weeks, elementary has really done it.
the concern we have, what is the legislature going to do about funding? Because if they base on ADA, we're not going to be at that 90%. We're going to be, oh my goodness,
40, 50 million.
we hope 80% at least. Are they going to fund us on that? Because if that happens, you get in $6,100 a student. That's how much you get.
Mhm.
So if you're not at 100%,
Mhm.
take that away, the budget's going to shrink. And what does that do for hiring people, right?
Freeze, yeah.
Freeze,
Freeze of people,
yes.
can't hire new people. That's something. And that's another motive, honey, for people to say you need to come back. Because if we don't get the kids back, you might not be back either.
True.
Now we have kids that have left to Mexico.
Yes.
Okay, that's a huge challenge for us. And we're going to,
To another state because, well, I can do it online.
Lots of people,
Exactly.
wow.
Or they're working because now the parents, they need the
I'm
income.
hearing
and-
that a lot.
Yeah, they're working.
A lot of sophomores, juniors, and seniors.
They're working.
Especially in the states that they're.
Parents have been laid off, so they're working 1 to 2 jobs part-time. And
Help,
just to sustain the family, to help with the family.
Well,
Our kids are going through a lot.
and that's something, we don't know it's confidential, but there's a way to sort of find out what really happened to the family. Did you have, how did COVID impact your family?
Mhm.
Unfortunately, we've had loved ones lost, grandparents or what have you.
And our principals are really good about that because either the children reach out to the counselors, the principals, or the kids' friends. So we're constantly getting messages that such child's father passed away, either cancer or relative or brother or sister, from either COVID, cancer, or a tragedy.
Sure.
So immediately, the campus principals contact their counselors and they do a referral to the LPCs. And not only does that child get the assistance, but the whole family receives the therapy that's needed.
That is one.
And in some instances, there's children that have gone through various traumatic situations. Some of them have lost their homes.
Yes.
Okay, all kinds of things. And what's sustaining them is that hope that our LPCs and our counselors provide to them.
So, yes,
Do
yes.
you remember the young lady that you just said student from Alton Memorial that had this seizure?
Yes.
Yeah, I talked to someone today that works up there, and she's very concerned because she said she came back the next day and she's still kept. So she walks over and she's one of the aides
Mhm.
and talks to her and tells the other sister, y'all need to take her to the doctor.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, well, we did. Well, no, we were going to, but so anyway, they never took her
Well,
except from the ambulance.
okay.
And
well,
she
well,
hasn't come back. So I told her, tomorrow you call the LEPs and they will
well,
go.
no, and just so you know, the LPC
Uh-huh.
has been monitoring and working with the parents.
Parents, good.
And so forth. But the child, the night before, had been at the ER. Then the next day, was taken, and ER referred them to the pediatrician. But the LPC has been in constant communication with the mom and providing the therapy for the child.
She's concerned that she hasn't come back to school.
Well, sometimes,
They told them not to or whatever.
yeah, exactly.
She's just worried about it.
Yeah, and not to give details, but at this point, the type of service that this child is getting, it's best that the child continues
Sure.
getting what the child is getting
Sure.
through remote instruction and the
That's good.
Yeah. And Mr. Jesse Trevino is very good about following up as well.
This is the text, and we know what that is. That's what we have. This is the star here, I think. So this is an example of, well, this is a third grade test, I think. Perhaps, this is a, this is the text, this is the text.
Yes.
Gives us there we go, takes the star. It takes, of course, and then the star, it's, plus was verified, right? Okay, very well. This is an example here. This is a lead-in problem, and the student has to come up with the right answer. Yeah. Okay.
You see, and this looks like a third, 3.5, it's third grade.
Third grade.
This is a third grade.
It's a third
I
grade
am.
exam, so you have to
And
be able
look
to
at
read. You have to be able to comprehend.
The art teacher had 735 grants. She threw away, so minus 197. Then she bought, so then you add 150. So it's multi-step.
So the child gonna have to do some critical thinking, right? So you know the answer is B, right? The kid has, that's third grade, they have to be able to do that.
So it's process.
Exactly. Very
You have to
well,
process the information.
very well.
This is for third grade.
Third grade. So this is, I won't go into that. Okay. This is a piece on third through eighth grade. Approaches level, that's fairly
Uh-huh.
passing. Okay, approaches. That means if you get at approach level, you're not really college ready. You're totally gonna be, have remediation. You get to the meets level, 60% chance of doing well post-secondary. The master's 75%. So if you want to get an A at a campus, you need to have 90% of your students at approaches, 60% of them at meets, 30% at masters. That will definitely give you an A, right? So you want to have 90% of your students need to be passing at least at approach level, and 60. That's how they're evaluated. Since the last test was 18-19, 2 years we wouldn't have a test, so now we don't know what we're going to do in terms of how can you measure growth when we didn't get
Anything.
right. And then given the pandemic, you have remote learning, so the students, it's not going to be a valid exam. So we're probably going to start over 2021, 22, I'm thinking, probably. We don't know. And this simply gives you, the start. This is right here is like, you know, the English 3, 2, 1. All, this is just a portion of English piece all the way down. It tells us the alignment really from when the accountability system starts in grade 3, all the way through 12. Keep going here. Pass fail. Okay. In the past, the old system said you either met standard, right? And then you had, I think it was called exemplary. What was it? Exemplary was tops. What was the second one? Exemplary, there were 3 things. But one thing that it did not do, it just said that you met the standard. It didn't tell you whether you were A, B, C, or D. The one we have now, it really quantifies how well you did. Were you A, B, C, or D? That's our system. So this really, the multi-tiered is a better system. It tells us how we're doing. Really is. Much, much better. Multi-tiered identifies where the campus is or the school system.
Just like our students get graded.
Right. Before they didn't, they just said you met the standard. Right? 5 years, that's how long we said that we'd have this system in place. But we've lost 2 years already. So the legislature's gonna have to modify this to, gonna have to be added, I guess, to 2 years we lost. How are you gonna address that? I think it's gonna be added on 2 additional years. There we go, I couldn't remember. See, before it was
Yeah, I thought it was.
recognized, acceptable, for improvement, right? That's the old label. But the new label is A, B, C, D, and F, right? That's the difference we're talking about. Now we get into the domains. 70% of the student performance is based on student achievement and school progress. 30% on closing gaps. Closing gaps is the federal piece. The federal piece is called ESSA, Every Student Succeed Act. Okay, that replaced No Child Left Behind. But in this closing the gaps, you have English language learners, you have special education or special needs, low socioeconomics, and then you have race, and you have I think it's mobility. You know, students moving from campus to campus to campus. So we look at each one of those populations and you disaggregate it, okay? Now we're gonna break it down further into student achievement. What does student achievement tells us? Okay, all right. Grade 3 through 8 is a STAR test. And then the high school deals with military exams, no longer the case. Let me see, here we are. This is on the student achievement. Either one of these right here, then you get credit. The APIB program is one, the TSI, that's what students take college entrance exam. And they also have the dual credit, earn associate degree. That will allow you to be college ready. The career readiness, the CTE course, that is going to be taken out. The first dot will no longer be used for 2021-22. It's going to be, it has to be no longer core sequence, but I think it's going to be based on industry certifications. And then military is out, of course. This right here is the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board that oversees higher education. The 60 means 60% of adults, I think between ages 24 and 35, should have a degree, that is a certificate or degree by 2030. The 30 is 2030. 6% of adults should be literate with an associate degree or certificate certification or bachelor's degree or higher. Okay, that's what that is. So we work toward that, and articulating with higher education, because some of our kids have associate degrees. We don't have many college hours. So we're working toward trying to get our population educated. School progress. School progress, relative growth versus student growth. Student growth is for the wealthy districts, where you have students who do not have economic means, and their parents are pretty well educated, like Westlake, Alamo Heights, suburbs. Those students are going to score high, so it's called student growth. But for poverty districts like we are all in the valley, we have relative performance. It measures growth. And you can get an A in relative growth the same as you can in student growth. You follow me? That's one of the things the commissioner got right, in that he did not put us all in the same box and say that everybody have to have, A's or B's.
Equity and equality.
Equity and equality. Equity here, right? And we really, I remember I was at that meeting with Mariah about 3 years ago. We talked about that. And he said, well, growth should matter. Sure, it matters. We can get there, just take us a little longer, right? More time on task. We're not going to get into the weeds on this, but this is the one thing you'll note. This. This is the approaches right here. This is the lowest level. You'll notice that if you want to get an extra point, you go from approaches up to meets, you get a point. If you go from approaches to you maintain, you get a 0.5. But if you regress here, you get 0. Now, the piece that we need to look at is this. If you're at a meets level, you're at meets, right? We have a lot of kids out at meets. You regress back down to approaches, you get what? 0 points. If you had masters and fall back down to meets, you get 0 points. That's going to be a real issue for us with this pandemic. So kids, because of things that happen, it's going to be very, very difficult.
But it's not only our kids, it's everybody.
Everybody's kids, right? Okay. It's just, we won't get into detail of this. Teachers and the staff, they deal with these things here. Just to know, though, you have this here, you can see how they get to the, eventually to the A, the B, and the C, right? So you're gonna have as many kids, 30% of them at masters, and 60% of them at meets, and 90% of them at approaches. Okay. This is kind of a scattergram. I'm looking at here, I think this deals with relative growth. This green dot here are the kids here in the wealthy districts. They've scored up this high. The red dot here is relative progress. This is equal to that based on the formula they use. Your campuses are judged against similar campuses in other states. Now, what's an elementary campus here that's fairly wealthy? I mean, more high economic. Brian. So Brian's going to be measured against another school campus, let's say in McAllen, that's similar. Won't be measured against, what is one of your lowest? It's probably lowest economic.
Salinas.
Probably.
Okay. So they won't be measured against it. You follow me? They're going to measure apples to apples. Follow me? So that's what we need to understand. So I tell the folks in Harlem, remember we have like Treasure Hills, and in order to find out if you're low socioeconomic, a lot of parents didn't want to give information about I guess to see if the kids qualified for a free reduced lunch. Well, it elevated them up pretty high. Well, they're competing against these suburban districts. They wonder why did they get a B, right? Because you say you're wealthy what you think you are, right? True. So that can happen, right? Okay, getting close to the end. This is again talks about the scattergram we see here. Brings out equity here and that. The closing the gap piece here. This is closing the gap. Economic disadvantage, English language learners, continue to enroll in mobility, special education, and race and ethnicity. We're pretty much homogeneous here, folks have a low population, a white population, probably have maybe, what, 4%, maybe 5%?
Yeah.
So it's not that statistically significant, right? But in big districts where you have a lot of African Americans, a lot of Hispanics, Asians, and all this, it becomes really critical, right? It doesn't really apply to us. This is the federal piece. And, this is replaced the No Child Left Behind. I'm trying to think of, remember before, Dr. Pettis, we had the double standard, we call it adequately yearly progress, what was it? AYP.
AYP.
AYP, I used to get so frustrated because you're fine with the state accountability system, but you didn't meet the AYP. It was, now that's no longer a problem. I'm glad to see that's gone, right?
Yeah, well, but we still have the other one. Now they call it the RAS, which is, remember the PBMAS?
Yes, oh, that's right. That's right, we do.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that will happen when you look at the campus, for example, and it said it's a B campus, B rated, and they go through the student achievement, the student progress, and closing the gaps. And then there's a comment made that will say additional support, what it says, yes, additional support required. That means that one of these groups here you need to work on. Though you're a B campus, but it will point out that your English language learners are not adequate.
Exactly.
Follow me?
Yeah, now it's called results-driven accountability.
Yes,
And that's the federal one.
yes. So that's where we are here. That's what we're faced with. I think we're about to the end here. Okay? Okay, implementation matters. For the agendas. Okay, this is Lone Star governance. What I'm talking to you about today, that's part of Lone Star governance. The inputs, outputs, and outcomes, those kind of things. I've touched on that too. I've done some Lone Star governance. Here's program you can go through, something going through it. But the key thing is people understand accountability, understand the part about inputs, outputs, and outcomes, and adult behavior. When it changes, then student outcomes will probably change. Big thing. I think that's probably where we are. Okay. Any questions? Any takeaways? Okay. Now we understand the evaluation and improving student outcomes and what is involved in that. That's what we want you to do.
No sign. Did no sign in?
Sign in sheet?
Yeah. Oh, you have the certificates? Okay.
Oh, I need to sign.
So let me give you.
I want my certificate.
I didn't have you.
I have. I thought I signed up here.
Ay, no me lo voy a poner aquí.
Sí. I want my gold star.
Stop the video.
I have got, this has got everybody's,
Stop.
Dr. McShann, got everybody's name if you want them to sign by their name.
I was gonna stop it
You
out.
don't need a sign.
Well, no, I did it for you at the meeting.
You already did.
At the meeting, I'll have you.
Okay.
You forgot about that.
Okay,
So I did get the certificates to give you the credit.
okay, that's fine.
Excellent. Everybody held up well.
It
Actually,
was the vaccination.
No, yo me estoy moviendo porque no quiero que me vaya a dar la patatús
Right now, I'm doing this, right?
a las 11.
And
this was a non-negotiable. What do you think about the meeting? We're gonna take a shot to that. So, well, you know, it happens and it happens here while we're.
911.
Exactly.